Oh, actually, what about... well, I was clearing out this area to build a RAM, a bank in, just for practice. So, I should mark out the dimensions first before starting. Actually, how long is this? Again, 7. So that's about the footprint of the device, and it should extend about that high each time. So we're going to want probably 16 individual cells because that's 4-bit addressable. And I think for the input, we should have it be like this. And probably for the moment, just have these debug levers. Is that correct? No, actually, this is not correct. Because I forgot. This is too high, actually. There. And now this should function. Unless I'm missing something. Taking another look. Oh yes. So these are actually vestigial. And this should be it. There. This is one complete cell. And so now, the next tileable area would be right here. And actually, we can just put it right back into the original format just like that. And the really nice thing about this is, now look at how it tiles here. Oh, perfect. I just now noticing there's a lot of airspace in here. Oh, look at that. Hold on a second. There. So the first two things I always do in creative is I set weather to clear and set time to day, and then whenever I need to redo those two things, I just press up until I have the correct one. Usually I do both of them at the same time each time. Hmm. And then eventually we're going to need to find a way to bus the input to all of these. I think that's going to be the hard part, as well as the output. This decoder that's supposed to plug into the left side, yeah, probably won't pose too much difficulty. I already have a one functioning decoder design that's actually minimalized just for something like this. Actually, let's put on some debug lights, just so that we can see at a glance what's happening inside. Going to need to be testing all of this, of course. Yes, this is all correct. And so that is a successful 3 unit cross tile. So that'll be 3x4, like I originally re-predicted instead of the actual 2, because I forgot to take into account the floor of each of these. Which, actually, looking at it now, we might be able to... Hmm. We can try removing the floor later and altering how it tiles. But for right now, we should probably begin with the decoder because we already know how it's going to tile from here on. So, remembering the decoder design I used, it was, I think, like this right here. And then to program the decoder, yes. And then taking the output of that is as simple as doing this, just like with the larger thing. Yes, this functions accordingly, and so we can use this. But we're also going to need 3 more of these in order to make up the full 4 bits of addressable everything. And then AND gates, of course, where I think... No, actually, not AND gates. It's going to need to be, I think, yes, the second half of the decoder, because this is just the pattern output of the decoder. Thinking about how that might work, though. Because originally, the way decoders worked when I built them was something like this. You would have a staircase for redstone, which was really inefficient. And then I think at intervals, you would have these. Well, either these or one of these, and that would be the beginning of the sort of... Actually, I'm going to go show you right now. I think there's going to be a model around here. Yeah, this part here. So the decoder comes in 2 parts. The first part, of course, is the sort of... What would you call that? No way. This is the modern decoder design. I think it doesn't even have a parallel for the old kind. You see, this is my design process. Half of it is knowing exactly what I'm doing, and the other half of it is forgetting crucial information and then trying very hard to remember what I forgot. Hmm. But of course, obviously, this is useless right now. We're trying to make optimized hardware because we want something good to run software on. And preferably, I would like the software to run faster than, one instruction per every a minute? Unironically, that's how fast some of these computers run in Redstone, because they're unoptimized. Yes, in order to pack this tighter, I'm going to need to do weird things with the tiling, which I don't want to figure out right now. Although, that might actually make this part simpler. So, then, the general idea of this is to have the next layer be up here. Actually, yes, and you see, the pattern is actually the same, but it is, the scale of it is expanded by a factor of 2 each time, and so it forms a sort of a macro pattern. Yeah, I think this would work. Right. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, yes, of course. I was doing it wrong. But it feels like something is missing. Oh, yes, I see what it is. So that it would actually not work because there would need to be redstone right here on this level, and that would get in the way of this. And so that doesn't work. So instead of that, we're going to need to use, I think I know something else that would work. There, that separates them successfully. Unfortunately, it also adds a 1 tick delay, which 1 tick once is not a very big deal, but when you have a 1 tick delay 1,000 times in a large program, that adds up, and that's where the big problem is when you start repeating things. And so the first layer doesn't actually need that modification in order to work, so that can just be directly exported, which will actually be a little bit inconsistent, but not that bad. And unpacking all of these signals would be also difficult. The idea, though, is to have a sort of a so for 16 outputs, we're going to need one combination for each output, and so we're going to need to check for each one of those combinations, which is going to require... 1 second. It's going to require some AND gates, and I think it was some implies gates. Basically allow valves and cancel valves, or carry and cancel valves, as I sometimes call them. I don't use correct terminology because, well, I don't know the terminology because I barely research these things. I mostly just invent them myself. So, oh yes, of course. Oh, that's not good though, and I know why. But that's easy to fix, thankfully. There. Perfect. Actually, this is the wrong way around. There. The first one is always supposed to be 0 on all of them. And then on the first one, the next one is supposed to be 1. Yeah, that's how you remember. And so, in this case, this one, because it has nothing on right now, will turn on the 0 output, but we need a way of checking for that, and fitting in the checks required. That's what I'm trying to figure out. We'll leave that for later. I'll subconsciously figure that out myself, and instead we can focus on the busing for these while we're thinking about that. So, this looks like it requires something like a staircase. But a more efficient type of staircase than the spiral staircase for redstone is the glowstone staircase. No. I'll put the staircase in the fourth one here. We're replacing this part because it's useless. There. Also, there. So we can always have that option. Now the problem with putting staircases right next to each other is they interfere with each other. For obvious reasons, of course. You see that? Separating the redstone signals and manipulating them well is always the biggest problem. And in this case, I think it might be best to just spread them out into their more natural state and then build the staircases. Which, actually, because this is such a small bandwidth, shouldn't be that hard. So, we can, to begin with, yes, we're going to remove these as well. Like this. Yes, and then bring that out like this. And there, now it's in its natural state. Now let's see if we can do that stackable vertically. There, that's looking better already. Actually, we can consolidate like this, because they only need to be orthogonally adjacent, so the 4 cardinal directions, they don't go diagonal, which is actually something we can take advantage of to do weird things like this. Diagonal busing. It's actually a lot more compact than it maybe should be. Alright, so now we have these separated. But of course now that's even wider than the cell itself is internally. So it looks like the busing is actually going to be less efficient than the actual modules, which is a good change. Usually the busing is much more consolidated than the rest of it, or at least in my earlier designs. It looks like the decoder itself is going to be about as big as the actual memory also, which is weird. I think we might be able to use staircasing for the checks though. I'll think about that later. We're also going to remove these and begin doing the inverse here. So the inverse of that back there would be something. Actually, let's get rid of all of this excess at the front. That's going much further out than it needs to. Actually, can we do the same here? Oh, here's a problem that we can easily solve, actually. Or can we? I guess we can do it like this, which is fine. And then we can have this not be here anymore. So this is going to be a special modification of the design in order to make it work even better for this situation, not for all situations. Which we can probably actually do on the same side over here. No, that would break the consolidation. We don't want it getting too expanded. You see, this is already wider out than it was before. Which we can actually do right here to get rid of that. And make all of this easier. Yes. And then this can just go straight out like this. And I can bring this up from in here. And then from there, we can... Actually, that boxes this one in here. So... Yes, this is looking correct. Except for that. There, a barely functional solution. Good enough for now. So that stays at the same level, and then actually we don't need to bring those up to the ground level because they're above ground level currently. That fixes that problem pretty easily. Oh, actually we do. I just had a thought. Because they all need to be on the same level in order to be in standard form. And so I might as well bring this up as soon as possible as well. And now, that's tileable as well. But that can actually be compressed down like this here in order to consolidate the output as well as the input. We can do some internal consolidation here. It's these small optimizations that can either make it really good or accidentally break everything because there's something you didn't consider. You need to be very careful what parts you cut out because they might be critical parts. Some idea is to press it down vertically like this and then build the staircases so that the staircases don't need to be so tall. I think we're actually going to have two towers right next to each other, both 8 of these cells, to make them even shorter and have it be a more square form factor. But that would probably, I think that would also decentralize the decoder as well, so we would... Yes. I think this is enough for right now. I'm getting exhausted from all of this. Usually the design process takes a lot longer than this because I think carefully and go much slower.